Hey, what's up, masters? Welcome to another episode of Path to Mastery podcast. Today we are with Mr. Lee Benson. Lee, how are you today, man?
I am well, David. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing great, brother. Interestingly enough, before we started recording, we realized we knew each other from the Genius Network. The 1 year Joe Polish took sabbatical. I was there, and you were there as well. So that's pretty cool.
That's right.
So talk to us. Your company is called it's Execute to Win.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah. So Execute to Win, or just ETW. If you want to learn about it, go to etw.com. And we help organizations create value faster. I've worked with hundreds of companies, thousands of leaders. And for the companies, the primary role of a CEO is, in my view, is to continually and responsibly increase the value of their business over time, like continually do that. And by proxy, the entire leadership team's job is to collectively do that too. So we help companies do that. And I wrote a book titled Your Most Important Number. And in that book, I outline an operating methodology. I call it the MIND methodology, which stands for most important number and drivers, to easily do that. There's so many operating methodologies out there. It could be 40X, scaling up, EOS, OKRs. They all seem to start out okay, and then they fizzle fast. And there's a number of really good reasons as to why that happens. So I came up with something after decades, of running and building my own companies. I've started 8 companies from scratch now. I've had one exit in 9 figures, one in 8 figures, one in 7 figures. I'm still operating a couple, and a couple of them I closed. So through all of that, discovering, hey, what really works in the real world with real people, that's what's in my book, Your Most Important Number.
I love it. You said you said a lot of things, but one of the things you said is and I want to really talk about this today, is people start strong and then fizzle.
Yeah.
It's a very common theme in a lot of business. Most businesses fail. Why is that?
Yeah, in the context of what I said, is they pick an operating system. Let's say they're running along, they want to do better, they're struggling to create value as a business. So they pick something like OKRs. And for a little while, wow, this is really making a difference. Everybody's excited about it. And I think the main reason it makes a difference early on is because the whole team is focused on making the business better in terms of the value that it creates. That's it. Like just having those intense conversations and working through stuff. And then they figure out, oh my gosh, this is super cumbersome. We're teaching everybody a new language. It doesn't make sense. Traditional goal setting really doesn't stand the test of time. And then they coast. They kind of tend to get in this groove without the right cadence of regularly looking at improving the value that the business creates. That's it. It's like we get in this groove. So that's why, again, upfront, hey, we're excited, we're talking about it, wonderful, and then it doesn't work. And I hear that all the time. Hey, we went with, EOS is a pretty big common one out there. We went with that. It was great until it wasn't. And so what they're missing is that initial energy around improving the business is what most of the time caused the big change in the results, which is fantastic. And I wanted something that was evergreen and it catches fire on its own. And that's what I've developed in Your Most Important Number, with the book that I call the MIND methodology. That's really the difference. And then one piece here, be interesting to see how your listeners resonate with this, is I've never found traditional goal setting to stand the test of time, ever. I go in, I get to see lots of companies. I love the work that I get to do, and I audit goals. And less than 10% of the goals are thoughtful and really leading towards creating more value for the organization. The rest of them are just kind of checking a box exercise. Doesn't feel good. I have a completely different way that I recommend running at that, and it works.
Okay, good. I love it. What up? So, and maybe, I don't know if this is just me, but what is an OKR? You mentioned that twice.
Objectives and key results. It's a popular operating system. I'm not even sure where it started, but I know Intel made it quite popular back in the day.
Okay, so objectives and key results.
Key results.
Okay, got it.
And Go ahead.
Similar, EOS is the other one, which I should know EOS. I've heard that a million times, but what is
Yeah.
that? Tell
And
us.
entrepreneurial operating system, there's also scaling up. There's 4DX, the four disciplines of execution. And there's probably 100,000 operating systems that have been developed by consultants that have their own nuances. At the end of the day, what are we really trying to do? Like, you look at the organization, if we're going to increase the value at over time, what's the one number that's reflective of that? And it's usually some version of profit, could be EBITDA, whatever. But as that grows in your markets, you get these multiples when you sell it. Now you look at the structure of the organization. Okay, we have marketing, we have sales, we have operations, we have finance, whatever is appropriate for the structure for your organization. Now the next question is, what's the one number for each of those functions that reflects the value they were designed to create and will drive the majority of the right behaviors? So let's say marketing, you talk a lot about it in your podcast. Marketing, in my view, and of course, every business is different to some degree, but it's about generating qualified leads. And so what's the definition of a qualified lead? It's not any lead coming in, obviously. And what do we, and so what's that one number that reflects the value that marketing is creating is going to be qualified leads. Part of that definition has to be closing percentage, 20%, 30%, whatever. And then my next question is, for marketing, what's the best work you and your team are doing to improve the quantity and quality of qualified leads?
Mm.
And then I've got sales. Now, what are we doing to close them? And I'm a big believer that whatever part of the organization is responsible for delivering the product or service, and sales and marketing need to have a regular cadence of being at the hip, because the work that each of them do energizes what the others do and makes them more successful. Why it stays in silos today still is fascinating to me, because they're really hurting their ability to create more value for the organization by staying in silos. What's your take on that, David?
Yeah, I think that you nailed it. I think sales and marketing should be doing a better job of working together and in helping each other. And I think another part of that is the fact that a lot of companies don't even realize there's a difference. To be honest, right? I feel like a lot of companies, they say, oh, we sales and marketing, they just group as one thing, and they don't really put enough thought into not just, okay, the quality of the lead, but where is the lead coming from? What should we do to get in front of that lead? What should we, right? So I think there's more to it than just sales and marketing. And I think most businesses don't spend enough time on each, to be honest with you. So I want to go, yeah. What do you think about my answer? And then I have another question for you.
Well, I love the answer. It's bigger than that. In a lot of organizations, just put somebody over sales and marketing. It's like, wait a minute, we could be a lot more intentional and strategic about how we look at each of those and how they integrate with each other, as well as with delivery of product and service. Like, one of the best sales and marketing tools we have is word of mouth, because of the amazing experience our customers had. And then here's the other piece that I'm getting from what you're saying, and I see this a lot too. Hey, this person would like to do marketing. Let's let him or her do it. And it's like, oh my gosh, they're not even capable. So when I look at a role that's going to be filled, so you've got the structure, you've got all these functions that have to work together, be in balance. Well, what are the roles needed to be filled with people in each of those functions? And I'm always looking at, for each role, there should be 2 to 4 max measurable outcomes that each of those roles are responsible for achieving when we fill them. Now I want to see a list of capabilities that somebody should have, so they have a shot at actually achieving those.
Yeah.
And then there's a list of duties, update your CRM and, keep it current, et cetera, as an example. But I don't think many are doing that either. They're putting people in charge of revenue in some way, marketing or sales or both, that aren't even capable of doing it. And then they get frustrated and say, oh, it's not working.
Yeah.
No, the idea is right. You have to have somebody capable actually executing on it. What do you think about that?
Well, I think a lot of companies right now are just trying to rely on the AI. That's the new jargon is AI. We're using AI, and so we're going to use AI. It's going to It's going to do everything for us. It's going to do the marketing. It's going to do the sales. It's going to bring the people into the funnel. It's going to close them. It's going to set the appointment. So we don't even we don't need to be involved anymore. Just like kind of sit back, and I feel like it's a huge mistake. I think we're going to get better at it, right? But I mean, I don't know about you, Lee, but I get probably 15 messages a day, text messages from different AI asking me like, how are you doing? And just weird things that who's going to respond to that, right? Or you get phone calls from AI bots, or so I think, for me, it's I love the conversation on sales and marketing, because that's my world, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I think that all of us intentionally can do a much better job of separating the two. So marketing is okay, great. We're bringing people in, and then once people are in our system, then I mean, there's still obviously ongoing, staying in front of them, staying top of mind. But then it's about, okay, now how are we going to convert them into a customer? In my opinion, that's when the sales takes over.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's so much to kind of unpack in everything you just said there. I look at it today, there seems to be, if I'm just going to generalize, two categories of business leaders. There's those that want to make as much money as they can for doing as little as possible. And there's lots of organizations that preach that that's what you should be doing. And then there's the other side, who I like to hang out with. I don't like hanging out with this first group I just described, that they want to be on the front lines, creating real value with real people in the real world, connecting and making all that happen. And then the long-term sustained growth and value creation happens, material, emotional, and spiritual, like all that happens. And I want to get back to that. And I wish I only got 15 messages a day from AI. It's hundreds that come in. It's crazy what's going on. And even not to go off on a tangent, but even like social media, my first question when I see something, is that an AI bot? Is it a paid troll? Is it a real person with a real opinion? Like, I have no idea. I've gotten to a place where I have value creation filters I look through, and does this make sense in that it will create value in the world? Yes or no, material, emotional, or spiritual. Spiritual is connectedness for me, or not. And that's how I look at everything. Can't even really watch the news anymore, conservative or liberal. Everything's a spin going in a certain direction. It should be about creating better conditions for the citizenry, not who gets elected, right? So this is a strange transformational time, and I think what's going to happen is we're going to start forming more communities of individuals that are committed to the truth and creating value in the world, and that's that value creation, that intrinsic motivation, and all the stuff we're doing there will put up a shield from all this noise going on. So that's what I predict is going to happen, and there'll be hopefully sources of truth that we can land on, right? And that becomes cool, not who can spin the most.
Yeah. Talk to it. I liked what you said. Create value creation filters. What is that? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, everything I look at in the world, and again, I've had really good exits. I've done really well. I don't have to work. I love being on the front lines with for-profits, nonprofits, and families creating value creation cultures. And so, like a simple way to look at this, as I cultivate myself and I want to figure more stuff out, you can call it elevating human consciousness, whatever you want to call it. The more we figure out, the easier life gets, the more value we can create. And so there's material value creation that everybody gets. It's money, it's material things. There's emotional energy value creation, which has always been a huge part of my leadership development programs, how we show up as leaders. Like, I think emotional energy is the scarcest commodity on the planet by far. I'd rather live only half as long on 9 or 10 than twice as long on 1 or 2. It supercharges everything that we do. And then spiritual value creation means something different to everyone, but it's about connectedness. And in all of my businesses, lots of programs to keep employees connected and build those relationships and really strengthen them, get every team member to act like the CEO of their own role, and they can rely on everybody else in the business to help them with that. And my companies have ranged from, as little as 10 employees to over 500 employees. And I was able to create that in any environment. It didn't matter. And I do it with the clients that I work with as well. So my value creation filters are, will this create net positive value in the world or not? So even if a large company makes billions of dollars, but in doing so took tens of billions out of the world. That's not cool. But people will applaud it like, oh, I invested in that. Look at all the money I made. No, but look what it took out of the world.
Mm.
And you could take an example like, going through COVID, and big pharma made lots of money, billions and billions, but it took trillions out of the global economy, the way the whole thing was handled. And I forget I don't even know if they know the exact number, but I bet at least 150 million people were put into absolute poverty that weren't there before. How many died that didn't have to, had we, like, based on how we reacted versus if had we done nothing, what would the difference have been? So I look at big things like that and say, was there net positive value created? Yes or no? I can look at all of the money going into education, K-12 education in the United States. Well, the proficiency scores continue to go down, and we put more and more money in. So, wow, that's not creating value. Our return on investment for doing things. And then I take it into families. How are you creating value as a family? What are we doing to cultivate material value creation? What it feels like to be in the family with the emotional energy value creation, the spiritual side, connectedness. Some are super strong, with their faith, whatever that is to each family, but connectedness, wildly important. So that's really it. Net positive, yes or no. And when I personally practice virtue, this is how I cultivate myself. I'm creating um, measurable positive value in the world, and I have to push back on things taking value out of the world in proportion in the three buckets. So that's how I think about it. And I want to practice virtue, not virtue signal. And the majority of the world, I think virtue signals more, excuse me, than they actually practice virtue.
So how do you discern whether it's a net, or is it a pulling value? Like do you have what's your process for that? Or is it just your thought process?
Yeah. So let's take the material side. I've seen a number of startup founders, and I've worked with so many startups where they bring a bunch of money in, but they're making really bad choices about what to do with that money, and they lose the money for the investors, going forward. So that did not create material value in the world. Or there's bad acting going on where they're taking money and using it to take care of their friends and do other things. I mean, just as like in the business context, is it creating net positive value? Yes or no? You start a business and you have employees and they're making a living, and the net result of all of it is there's more money left over. That's positive in there, right? But if your company makes money and others on the outside lose to a larger degree, because I believe everything should be win-win, then
Yeah.
that wouldn't be positive. Is that helpful?
So maybe I could ask a better question. So I guess what you're saying makes a lot of sense. Like you can, after you, like, I see the result. I'm actually want to go before that. Like, how do you even determine if I should even go into business with this person or help this person or work with this company? Do you have a filter before that? Obviously at the end, we know what happened, but how do you just make that decision ahead of time? Because I think that's where a lot of people get stuck or they make the wrong decisions, or they get excited about something and they jump into something, and then a couple months later it's not exciting anymore.
Yeah, I love that question. And all of us make mistakes. And what's important is that we learn, from that going forward. But I kind of mentioned or pointed to this earlier. It's how they talk about it. So if you want to invest or get involved with something, is the CEO talking about how much money they're going to make and how quickly, or are they just passionately talking about the value they're going to create? And the business model makes sense. How they price, the expenses, profit, the exciting part, which is potential for future profit. The value that the marketplace, the customers are really seeing and feeling, from this. The culture of the organization, the strategy, or just the approaches to increasing the value of the business. When they're passionately talking about that and creating value, okay, I want to be part of that. I want to learn more. The idea's got to make sense. But the majority of them aren't that, right? And I went to a startup event last summer, and they asked me to speak, and my deck was, I think the title was something like, what was it? Why 90+% of startup entrepreneurs fail. and what you can do to flip that. And so as I went through it, and I'm listening to all these people, there's probably 50 startup entrepreneurs in the room. They all have their pitch decks, and I talked to most of them that day, and there was only one I would be interested in investing in. And so I'm standing there talking, and I said, it can't be how much money can I get? It's got to be about the value you create. And the questions to me were, what can I put in my pitch deck to make you give me money? And I said, you know what? Out of everybody in this room, there's only one person I talked to that I would be interested in investing in. I need to learn more, but I'd be interested. And she was beaming like 2 rows back because she knew that was the conversation. The rest of them is, how do I get money, not how do I create value in the world? So listen to how people talk about stuff. And let me just add.
How did she know it was her?
Oh,
just based on the connection, or?
No, the way I was describing what they should be doing to create value in the world and how they're testing it and being connected. So I'm going through all of that, and I'm getting these ridiculous questions that say they didn't listen at all. It's that's not why they're there. They're there just to, get a bunch of money. Play startup, I call it. She knew it was different. It was so cool. But think about it. You've got the idea, and there's a lot that goes into that. And then you've got proving scalable traction based on the idea. There's a lot that goes into that. And then you have packaging to scale once you've proven scalable traction. And sometimes those start blending together. And then you've got scaling. And every one of those stages is really difficult for their own reasons, to get through it. And a lot of entrepreneurs will describe, if we have, this many people doing these things, it would be amazing. And people fall in love with this end state that often makes no sense. That can't be the idea for the company. It can be directionally where you want to go. The idea has to be how you're going to get there and what's going to work. Okay, now you've got the idea. Prove to me that people will buy it and your friends don't count. It's got to be real world focus groups, figuring this out. You can package and test quickly and expensively and do that, but prove that. And once you start to get some traction, okay, well, let's start packaging and seeing what this looks like. And it may point to, hey, we started with this, but this other thing is what really seems to be getting traction. Let's pour fuel on that. And then that could lead to another thing, but do less better. Don't try to do everything. And just because it's really hard, it doesn't mean go find something else. Keep working the problem till you have something. But I'm assuming that makes sense, David, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I want to go backwards a little bit when you mentioned in the beginning that these weren't your exact words, but how do we set goals? Like, what's the right way to set goals? I'll just ask you a direct question. Because essentially what I took from what you said is most people aren't setting goals the right way. So
they're just not. I mean, I hear folks with operating methodologies, EOS, there's a lot of companies operating on it. So this is a common frustration where they call their big goals rocks. And, every quarter, everybody's got to set 1 to 3 rocks and then rinse and repeat every quarter. So they're just like, okay, I have to do something. It feels terrible for the employees to go through it. And the CEO say everybody's hitting their rocks, but we're not going anywhere. Well, we're checking boxes we've made activity more important than what is most important. And what is most important is creating value. And so the way we do it in the MIND methodology, which again is outlined in my book, Your Most Important Number, is that every team has one number that says above all others, they're winning or losing the game. And it drives the majority of the right behaviors. It's reflective of the value they create. They may measure 5 other things, 20 other things, but only if they help them make better decisions to improve their most important numbers. So if let's say it's qualified leads, and it could be monthly qualified leads, and we need to hit 30, then 40, then 50, then 60. So you can see where we started, where we're going at any point in time. Are we on track, at risk, or behind for what we said we would do? And now the next question is, hey, what's the best work you and the team are doing to improve, in this case, the quantity and quality of qualified leads? Now, everybody's working as a team. You can see the score. It's like, think of a basketball game, football game, soccer. There's the score. And here's all this other stuff that we're doing to improve it. But everybody's looking at that score, and is what they're doing improving that score, or leading to improving that score, leading indicator, lagging, whatever. And it's just easy. It's how teams like to work. And so imagine at the top, you've got profit for a for-profit company. And then you've got marketing and sales, and then you could have teams going all the way to the front line. It could be, 5 teams, 10 teams, 1,000 teams, that if they all have their number and all the teams are doing their best work to improve it, when that improves, it accretes up, improves the next one all the way to the top of the organization. I had, before he passed, he was a partner in my business, ETW. Jack Welch used to run General Electric, voted manager of the century. When he looked at what I was doing with this back in 2011, he said, "This is the best business management system I've ever seen." He goes, "If I was still running GE with over 400,000 employees back in the day, he would have made every business run on this, because it's so easy, the transparency to see it." And then let's say you walk in, you're looking at a team. How long do leaders take to get the lay of the land? Like what's going on to get all this data? You walk into this system in any company of any size. Hey, what's your most important number? Got it. Hey, what's the best work you guys are doing to improve that?
Mm.
And it's so easy, and it drives cross-functional collaboration. It's a simple, we're not learning a new language. Like a lot of operating systems will teach you a whole new language. There's no new language here. There's how you measure the value that your team is designed to create. What do you call that? It's your company. And then what do you call the best work that you can do to improve it? How does that land, David?
It lands great. I want to maybe take this conversation to small business, or not even small business, because small business is hundreds of employees. Let's say we have an entrepreneur, or an entrepreneur, a small business owner with themselves and maybe 3 or 4 employees, a real estate agent with a team of realtors. How do we apply this to someone at that level?
Yeah, even the individual entrepreneur, they kind of have a team. They have advisors, they have contractors they work with, right? How do you get them all aligned to increasing the value of the business? And I don't care if you're just starting out from scratch. It's a great way to get your head around it. What would be reflective of the value of the business? Like if I was going to sell it, what would they look at? What would they want? And so now I've got my number. Okay, great. What are the elements of this business that I need to keep in balance and continually improve to make that happen and increase? So I've got sales, I got marketing, I've got all these different areas. And if I look at it and I say for each area, and I call them drivers in a business. So this is a really small business. For each of these drivers, sales, marketing, ops, delivery of product and service, finance, et cetera, how well are we doing it today on a scale from 1 to 10? And we should define that. Like, what's an ideal 10 state, perfect state for each one of these drivers? And I've never seen them come in 8, 9, or 10. Like some just want to look perfect and, oh yeah, we're a 10. But when you start digging into it, they're really a 2 or a 1. Great. I love the lower scores. Now, which one should we improve next that will have the biggest impact on improving the value of the business, i.e. the value it creates? And so the value of the business is not going to go up if customers aren't happy, if the experience isn't getting better, external and internal for the employees. We want them engaged with creating more value. And so you have to get all that stuff right. But these are all areas or drivers of improving the value of the business. And so as a startup, create the categories, go through it. And it's an amazing way to get your head around that.
So, and by the way, it looks like we got about 20 so people online. If anybody wants to ask a question to Lee, just raise your hand. I'm happy to bring you up. So if you're on Clubhouse, raise your hand, or I see some people here as well on social. You can just drop your question in the chat, and I'm happy to get your question to Lee. So when you talk about number, it's not necessarily a number, but it's like an example would be like, well, I'll use real estate as an example. Okay. You could take conversations as a like, the more conversations you have with motivated people, the better your business is going to do. Would you agree with that? Is that kind of in line with what you're saying? I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding.
Trusted relationship-based marketing is really important. But where does this fall? So this is an individual, and they want that to have they want to have more conversations so they can grow their business, right?
Yeah, like at the end of the day, yeah. So I'm going to take this all the way down to a real estate agent that's building a business around themselves, because most real estate agents, which a lot of our listeners are real estate agents, Lee, have a job, like they're doing everything, right? And so if you took, obviously our goal is to get them to a place where they have a business, where they have, employees, they have assistants, they have a team. But the key metric, I guess, would be, if you want to grow a real estate business, you need to be talking to motivated people, or just people in general, and then you'll find motivated people. Is that kind of in line with what
Yeah,
you're talking about?
let me jam on that a little bit here.
Good.
So if I'm
Love
a real
that.
estate agent and it's all about growing the revenue coming to me, right? That's what I
Yes,
want.
you need houses to list, and you need buyers that want to buy houses,
All
right?
of it. So my
Yeah.
most important number is going to be revenue, because it's basically net revenue.
Okay.
I mean, there's not a lot of expense. So that's my most important number. Now, what are the drivers that I can leverage to improve revenue? And conversations with the right perspective persona folks out there, super important. So on a scale from 1 to 10, how well am I leveraging that today? And then there's a whole bunch of other work that I could be doing in there. What would you call those categories of work that I can leverage to improve revenue over time? So that's what we're doing. We're listing out those things. What would a 10 state look like for each of them? Which one should I improve the most next? And I like to say there shouldn't be more than 2 or 3 in focus drivers to really improve at any point in time. Nothing should collect dust. But let's say for the real estate agent, there's only 5 drivers. Do less better. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Maybe there's only 4. How well am I doing them today? And what could I do to improve that? Because when I improve it, it should lead to increasing revenue. So here's an interesting example. In my Execute CEO masterminds that I facilitate every month, and these are all-day meetings. One of the newer members, came in, and we're talking about, well, how do your team members create value for the organization? And she went back and asked her leaders, how do you create value for the organization? She came back just white as a ghost, like, oh my gosh, the answers were terrible, right? And in a situation like this, with the MIND methodology, a team member, a leader would say, well, this is my team's most important number, and these are the categories of work that we're leveraging to continually improve it. And this is the best work that I'm doing to contribute to it. Well, that's a pretty darn good answer, instead of here's a job description, or I never thought about that, which is an answer too.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you my takeaway from what you said. It was when you went to the most important driver should be number should be revenue, right? Like I mean, I almost think like, okay, that kind of goes without saying, but because the first thing people do is they'll set the goal. They set their revenue goal or the income goal. Like this is how much money we plan to bring in. Then we go to the next steps, which are, okay, how are we gonna bring that in?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah, it's super simple. And my job, I know I'm getting better when that number is increasing. I need to meet more of the right people. This trusted relationship-based network, if I'm a real estate agent or a consultant out there, I have to manage expectations. I've had friends that got into residential real estate, and I said, look, let's do the research. What it shows is it could take 6 months before you even have one commission check that comes in, and a full 12 months before, if you work really hard and do the consistent work throughout the year, to be covering all your bills and some. And then a year from then, it can be amazing. And I remember one friend going through it, and it was crazy. Like right at 6 months, a $3,000 commission check came in. And at the end of the year, it replaced more income than she had when she was working for a larger engineering firm. And then 2 years later, it's like 40,000 a month in income. But she consistently did the work, but she wanted to give up at least 5 times that first year. So managing expectations is important too.
Yeah. Talk to us about, and then we're going to, I know we're going into about 35 minutes. So when you talked about, I'm looking at my notes, and sometimes I can't even read my own notes, which is not a good thing, but talking about the number again, but you mentioned, I think it was along the lines of, if you ask somebody how you're doing in that area, what does that sound like? Like you'd say, like, what makes, like, how would you have that conversation with me as you're working with me and you're trying to define or come up with my number or my area, and how so let's have that conversation.
Yeah, we always start with the function. So pick a function in an organization, any function. You want sales? You want marketing? What do you want?
So we need sales. Yeah, sales.
We need sales.
We need
Okay.
closings. Yep.
All right. So what would be the most important number for sales? And, to set the stage here, every team should be very actively engaged in coming up with their most important number. They need to own it. It can't be, I gave it to them. They've got to own it. And so for sales, what is that most important number? What do you think it would be? Now go ahead.
So for sales, monthly revenue, we'd say, right? Is that, or are you talking
for this,
or for the whole like an annual, this is how much we're going to bring in annually, or?
Well, it's really what's the most important number, and then we want to increase that over time. And so revenue by itself, if we do $1,000 in revenue and it costs us $1,500 to deliver, then that's not going to work. So we want profitable sales coming in, and whatever that looks like for each business. When I was running my aerospace business and we had 2,000 customers in 60 countries, large airlines, helicopter operators, it was an incredible business. Revenue wasn't sales' most important number. It was the profit that came out of it.
Yeah. So let's say it's 40,000 a month profit. We'll use the example you gave earlier. So an agent got to 40. So I want to make $40,000 a month profit from my real estate business.
Yeah. So we'll say, let's pick gross profit.
Got it. Okay.
Because in a company you could have expenses that sales control. So I've got gross profit.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. You're breaking it down. This is good. Okay. Yep.
Important number. And so that's the number. And then, okay, we're going to start at 40,000 at the beginning of the year. And we think we can get it up to 60,000 or 80,000 a month by the end of the year. So let's say it's linear and there's this line. Every single month we plot, are we on track, at risk, behind, or over driving for these things? So I can see where I'm at any point in time. I look at the categories of work. And I think one of it's technology, which includes the CRM and how we're doing all of that. How well are we leveraging each of these drivers or categories of work in sales to let us hit our most important number of gross profit from sales? And, $1 million could do it, or $200,000 could do it if it's wildly profitable sales, right? I mean, that's what we're looking for. So that's it. It's super simple. Then, and if I come up to you afterwards, if we pick gross profit, hey, David, let's look into that. What's the best work you and the team are doing to improve on your most important number? Now I get to be, and anybody gets to be, a super coach. We're not taking time to get the lay of the land, to figure out what's going on, pointing out one little thing that could be better, or that thing over there cuts through all the noise, right?
So what's working, what's produced the best results in the past, maybe double up on that, make some shifts, things, or remove some other stuff, right, that aren't working. So okay.
Yeah. What are you doing right now to improve that number and to continue improving it over time? I had one sales guy in the aerospace business, sold first year just over $1 million. He was so happy. I still stay in touch with him today. And then fast forward about 12 years, his last year, he was in the middle of $40 million in sales for a year. And he just kept cultivating his ability to, land bigger and bigger and bigger deals. And I would go out and travel and help put these things together with him. But it was wild to watch that confidence go from, I'd never thought I could ever sell $1 million in a year, to 40 million. And now he's running a company that's bigger than the one that I built.
Yeah. I feel like, and then I'll I want to get to your book as well. And I see a lot of people that what happens is they get to that, like you mentioned, somebody doing 400 million a year.
40 million, yeah, selling.
I'm sorry, 40 million, and then the next level could be 400 million for someone, right? From 40 to 400. But a lot of people, what they'll do is limit themselves, including myself sometimes, where I will start doing things that bring me back to my comfort. Let's say my comfort is $4 million a year, right?
Mhm.
and I want to get to 40, but all of a sudden I start getting up to like doing things that can get me to like 8 million or 10 million. But now I start kind of going back to, do you see that a lot? Do people do things to kind of like sabotage themselves, or is that just in the,
I, I think all of us have thoughts that aren't nearly as productive sometimes as they could be. And that they can come from a lot of different places, internal, external, that can hold us back. What I would say, if we're focused on creating real measurable value and continually increasing that over time, this just happens. But if you don't have an intentional way of doing it, it's easy to stay stuck. I look at my masterminds that I run, and every CEO's job in the three groups that I run, I've got certified chairs that do their own groups. Their job is to increase the value of their businesses responsibly and continually. Last year, of my three groups, so there's 24 CEOs. The lowest increase in value was 36%, 36 or 38. Highest was 1,100%.
yeah.
And that was crazy what happened in that example, but we're just intensely focused on that. And it's like a place we go for this deep, practical CEO founder wisdom that we just keep getting better and better and better and building on the value. And there's no end to it, and how far we can go with it. So when you're intentionally working on this and you're measuring the increase in value created by any team in the organization, if you lead the function or team or the entire organization, you can't help but go in that direction. But if you don't have an intentional way of doing it, I guess it's easy to stay stuck. I think it's healthy to always push your ability to be uncomfortable. Like, what is that band? Like, keep increasing it physically, mentally, and emotionally, and creating value in all three buckets: material, emotional, and spiritual.
I love it. Yeah, I really liked what you said about that. And I think also what you talked about is the mastermind. Super important, being around other people that are doing things at a higher level than what you're currently doing.
Well,
I think is critical.
But a point I would say about that, just because you're in the room doesn't mean it's going to happen. Because I've been part of masterminds with overlap like Vistage and others for 40 years plus. It's crazy. And they lose their evergreen value. And that's why I started my own group called Execute Mastermind, where it's all focused on creating more and more value, increasing the value of the organizations, and building value holistically in all three categories. And every 2 months we do a deep dive on everybody's business. In the other groups, it's a lot of folks, and you get to meet them and dig in, but there's no intentionally designed way to continually do that for your business. I haven't seen it anywhere, YPO, any of them. So my advice is, if you join a mastermind, what is the intentional value that you want to get out of it, right? It can't be, I'm around great people. Yes, the connections are great. Love the people. Amazing. You and I talked about, the Genius Network earlier. I've got some amazing friends I've met through that. That's great. The community's awesome. But if I'm in it to really increase the value of my business and have myself grow personally and professionally in order to do that, I need a better environment for it. And that's what I've created with what I'm doing. But for any listener looking at being in a group, how are you going to get value out of it? Even the group that you and I were in for a very short time, I would interview members. So how do you get value out of this intentionally? And I never got a good answer.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I can't disagree with you. But I think some of the relationships are worth the membership. So
100%. 100%.
So, all right. So your book is your most important number. How do people, well, first off, give us the breakdown of your book, and then how do people get a copy?
Yeah, you can find the book in 40,000 different channels. You go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere and everywhere. You can get it. There's an audio book, and at the end of each chapter, I do a recorded interview with the publisher. So there's more insights and background around that. And in the book, it just outlines a nice flow of, this is how you implement an operating methodology to create value faster and a lot more intentionally. The last chapter is a DIY chapter. It's intended for you to be able to do it yourself. If you go to our website, etw.com, you can actually take the Mind Methodology course, super inexpensive. And it's, again, intended to let you run with this on your own. And I get emails, David, from all over the world regularly saying, yeah, we just changed the language inside the organization a little bit. Within months, our numbers changed in the right direction. And for example, I'll have CEOs of companies say they're doing something and their team challenges them. What does that have to do with the most important number and improving it? It's like, gosh, that's so great. Like they're focused on creating value, whereas before they weren't.
Okay, man. Good stuff. Anything I didn't ask that you wanted me to ask, or anything I missed?
You and I could talk for 3 days straight. I know it.
Yeah.
But generally, what we do, if you go to etw.com, get the book if you want to learn more about this, take the course if you want a deeper dive on it. You can do it without any help. We can help you with our team implement it so you hit the ground running even faster. I'm happy to do that. And if you want to learn about the Execute Masterminds, we've got all of it right there as well. And again, masterminds, there needs to be a very intentional way of getting value out of it, I think, for all of us going in. And a huge one is for sure relationships, and you can find that everywhere.
Yeah.
And if you want to improve your business, the relationships don't necessarily mean that will happen. There should be an intentional way of doing it.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to learn more about your mastermind. So make sure I get some information on that. And so that sounds awesome. And there's I don't always do this because I know sometimes, like, we have somebody that wants to ask a question on Clubhouse. Usually if I know them, I'm okay with it. But do you have a minute? Do you have time for a question?
I've got another hour. Let's go.
Oh, okay, cool. I don't have another hour, but so Sue is on Clubhouse. Sue, I'll let you ask a question on Clubhouse because you raised your hand and came up. So what question do you have for Lee? Are you able to unmute? All right. Well, I don't know if Sue's able to unmute here on Clubhouse. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have any questions from Sue.
Okay.
So if anybody else has a question.
Hey, I'm here. I'm Rote.
Oh, there you are. Cool. Hey, how's it going?
Technology and my iPhone. You need to mute me if you can when the time seems right. Thank you so much for your patience.
Sure.
So you all, both of you, all you all, I'm offering you the grandmother clause. And I'm a retired nurse, 40-year career. The grandmother clause, I was a health edutainer. I still am, but I'm retired, and I needed boots on the ground in Phoenix because I spent a month there. And men do not take single women, elderly women, seriously. So I've been trying to build my board with intelligent life forms. So I use Clubhouse to stream. Anyway,
so do you have
I need to do business with you both, and I put my SurveyMonkey tool. I've used SurveyMonkey to very. All right.
So do you actually have a question, Sister Sue, for
yeah,
for
will
Lee?
you do business with me?
All right. Yeah, that's typically not. Yeah, this is what I said, Lee. All right. Well, thank you, Sue. I appreciate you.
One of the things I would say about that is when we bring the value, people will do business with us. They always will. And it's funny. I've got a very good friend. She's 82. She's still in the insurance business. I talked to her this morning. Her name is Betty. Love her to death. She does a great job. She has clients she's had for 30 years. She's bringing the value. She figured it out. And so I often hear, folks say, well, people won't take women serious, or they won't take this serious or that serious, or I'm too young, or I'm too old. Like, if you bring the value, they will. So my mindset is focus on that and not something else.
Wow.
It's about the value.
That's awesome, man. I love how that's a perfect answer to what just occurred. Like, right? Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what happens. You show up, you bring enough value to a conversation or to a place, and then people are like, okay, wow, I want to learn more about you. I want to understand you, right?
There's always, David, there's always value in every question, even if it's not right, or every frustration that comes out. Like, okay, what's really going on there? And you asked about the value creation lens and filter before. I can tell very quickly where somebody's at, and it's like, let me nudge them in a direction where they can create more value. I don't care where they're at in their life and what's going on. I think this is really worthy work for all of us to be doing.
Amen, brother. All right. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you again. Tell us best way to get a copy of your book, your mastermind. How do we connect with you on socials, etc.?
Yeah, please go to etw.com and you can learn about all of those things. You can get the book from the website or just go to Amazon. That's an easy way to do it. Apple Books, etc. And connect with me on LinkedIn. Easy to find me there. And I look forward to hearing from any and all of you. Thank you, David. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you, man. It was fun. And maybe well, send me info on your event, and who knows, maybe I'll see you at the Genius event again too.
Okay. Well, I'm here in Phoenix, so whenever you come out, you're welcome anytime. I'm actually in my music studio right now. You're welcome to join me here.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing. Well, hey, I'm glad we connected. And like I said, I had no idea that there was even any type of a connection before that. But then as soon as I saw you, I'm like, I know him from somewhere. And then it clicked.
That's why you look so familiar.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, small world. The world is a lot smaller than we think, right?
That's true.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing some value to our listeners today, Lee. Appreciate you. And I look forward to connecting again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Bye.